All right, let's dive into something I think you've been pretty curious about, high-performance habits.
Yeah.
That stack of Brendon Burchard's work over there tells me you're really ready to kind of unlock your potential.
Absolutely.
And his book, High Performance Habits, it's not just like another self-help book that's promising overnight success or anything.
Right.
It's about really understanding what makes high achievers tick and, how anybody can actually adopt these habits for success, long-term success.
Yeah, and what I think is so fascinating about Burchard's approach is that it's backed by research.
Oh, interesting.
So, he's worked with everyone from CEOs to Olympians, but he's also helped everyday people like parents and students achieve some pretty remarkable things by focusing on those daily actions, the things that drive lasting results.
I think we've all kind of wondered what sets those high performers apart.
Yeah.
Is it just raw talent? Or is there some secret formula?
Right.
But Burchard says it's not about personality types or magic tricks.
Yeah, no magic tricks.
It's about these consistent, repeatable habits that, honestly, anyone can learn.
That's the exciting part.
I love that. So let's ditch those get-rich-quick schemes and dive into the real deal.
Yeah, let's get practical.
The HP6.
Yes.
Burchard's 6 key habits for high performance.
Love it.
But before we jump into the specific habits,
yeah,
let's define what high performance even actually means.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's more than just hitting a few goals or having a good week.
For sure.
It's about consistently exceeding those expectations over the long haul.
Yeah, that's a big one. And here's something really interesting. It's not about being superhuman.
Okay, so we don't have to have superpowers.
No superpowers required.
Okay, good.
But what's so fascinating is that high performers, they tend to be healthier, happier, and even more adaptable to change than their peers.
Interesting.
So, for example, did you know that the top 5% of high performers are 40% more likely to exercise 3 times a week?
Wow, that's a pretty big percentage.
It is. And it's not even just about physical energy. It's about mental clarity and resilience.
Which makes a lot of sense. When I'm exercising regularly, I definitely feel more focused and energized.
Yeah.
It's like those endorphins, they kind of give you an edge, not just in the gym, but in life too.
Absolutely.
So let's get into those 6 habits.
Okay.
The HP6.
Yeah.
The first one is clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people associate clarity with setting goals.
Yeah.
But Burchard, he digs a little deeper.
He does.
It's not just about knowing what you want.
Right.
It's about understanding who you want to be in the process.
Yeah. It's a great point.
So think about how you want to show up, in every situation.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of person you want to become.
Absolutely.
And how your actions really align with your values.
It's a really important distinction.
He asks this thought-provoking question in the book.
Oh, I love his questions.
Is the person you've been lately the person you want to become in the future?
That's a good one.
I have to admit, that kind of stopped me in my tracks.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's so easy to get caught up in that daily grind and lose sight of that bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a moment like that where you've had to kind of reevaluate who you're becoming?
Oh, for sure. Multiple times, actually.
It's like you have to take a step back and ask yourself, am I on autopilot?
Totally.
Or am I consciously shaping the person I want to be?
Yeah, that's what clarity is all about. It's those intentional choices.
I love that.
Not just drifting.
Yeah.
And he even talks about defining your social self.
Oh, interesting.
So taking a moment before each interaction
Wow.
to set an intention for how you want to show up.
That's powerful.
It is.
So it's like setting an intention not just for what you achieve, but for who you are in every moment.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next habit.
Okay.
Energy.
Yes.
We talked about physical energy, but how do high performers manage their mental and emotional energy?
That's a great question. Burchard talks about mastering transitions,
Mm-hmm.
so those moments between, tasks and activities,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so easy to just let that stress and tension, carry over from one thing to the next.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. He suggests a technique called release,
Okay.
where you just close your eyes, repeat the word release,
Mm-hmm.
and you consciously let go of any negativity before moving on.
I've actually tried that. It sounds so simple,
It is.
but it's amazing how much it can really shift your energy.
Totally.
Imagine yourself, in a stressful situation, like right before a big presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Take a moment to just release that tension
Yeah.
and set a positive intention.
It's like hitting the reset button
Totally.
on your mood.
On your mood. It's all about being proactive with your emotional state.
Yeah, 100%. He also recommends developing these mental triggers.
Okay.
So, for example, every time you walk through a doorway, you could say to yourself, I will find the good in this room.
That's nice.
Just those little things can make a difference.
I'm a big believer in the power of positive self-talk.
Me too.
Okay, so we've covered clarity and energy. Let's talk about the next habit.
Okay.
Necessity.
Yes.
What does Burchard mean by this?
Okay.
And why is it so crucial for high performance?
Well, necessity is all about understanding why exceptional performance is a must for you.
Okay.
It's connecting your goals to something deeper. So your identity, your values, even external forces that drive you.
So it's not just about like wanting to succeed. It's about feeling like you have to, like it's part of who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a powerful motivator.
It really is.
Think about it. What makes you feel like you must achieve something? It could be a personal standard that you set for yourself, obsession with your craft, a deadline that lights a fire under you,
Yeah.
or even like a sense of duty to something bigger than yourself.
Right.
He calls these the 4 forces of necessity.
He does.
Okay, I'm hooked. Let's unpack those 4 forces in part 2 of this episode.
All right, let's do it.
I'm dying to hear more about this idea of obsession
Oh, yeah.
and how it can fuel high performance.
That's a good one.
So stay tuned.
You know, it's funny you mentioned obsession.
Yeah.
Because it's often seen as a negative trait.
Right.
But Burchard argues that it can be a really powerful driver of high performance.
Interesting.
Almost like this reckless dedication to mastering your craft.
He even says that when you're passionate, people understand. But when you're obsessed, they think you're a little crazy.
Right. A little bit.
So I guess there's a fine line between passion and obsession.
There is.
But I get it.
Yeah.
It's that intensity that pushes people beyond their limit.
Absolutely.
So walk me through those 4 forces of necessity.
Yeah.
What are the different ways people tap into that must-achieve energy?
Yeah. So the first one is high personal standards.
Okay.
So high performers, they hold themselves to a really high standard of excellence. Regardless of the task,
Yeah.
it's that inner drive to always do your best,
Right.
even when no one's watching.
It's like that saying, be so good they can't ignore you.
Yes, exactly.
It's not about perfection,
Right.
but it's about that constant striving to improve.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and that ties into the second force,
Okay.
obsession.
Go ahead.
Think about like world-class athletes, musicians, or entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They eat, sleep, and breathe their craft. They're not just passionate.
Right.
They're consumed by it.
So how do you know if you're passionate about something or truly obsessed with it?
That's a good question.
Is it just a matter of intensity?
It's more than just intensity.
Okay.
It's about that feeling of, I can't not do this.
Oh, wow.
It becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
Something you can't imagine living without.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the third force?
Okay.
External forces.
So this is where things like deadlines, competition, even a sense of urgency come into play.
Okay.
Sometimes we need that external pressure to push us beyond our comfort zone.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right.
I'm definitely a deadline-driven person.
Yeah.
There's something about that looming deadline
Oh, yeah.
that makes me super productive.
Absolutely.
But what about the fourth force?
Okay.
Social duty.
Yes.
How does that fit into necessity?
So high performers, they often feel a sense of duty to something larger than themselves.
Okay.
So their family, their community, even humanity as a whole.
Wow.
It's that feeling that your work has meaning and impact beyond just your personal success.
That I can see how that would be incredibly motivating.
Yeah.
Knowing that your work is making a difference in the world
Absolutely.
would give you that extra push to excel.
For sure.
Speaking of pushing forward, that brings us to the next habit.
Okay.
Productivity. You know, in today's fast-paced world, it feels like everyone's obsessed with getting more done in less time.
It's true.
But Burchard actually challenges that traditional idea of work-life balance.
He does.
It's not about dividing your time equally between work and life.
Right.
It's about the quality of your time,
Yes.
not just the quantity.
Exactly.
I think a lot of people struggle with that.
They do.
We're so used to measuring productivity by like how much we cross off our to-do list.
Yes.
But it's really about focusing on the things that truly matter.
It is, right.
Yes. And he also debunks the myth of multitasking.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to juggle a million things at once.
Right.
He argues that focusing on one task at a time
Yes.
with full immersion is far more effective.
It is.
I've definitely been guilty of trying to do too many things at once.
Oh, me too.
It feels productive in the moment,
Yeah.
but I end up feeling scattered and less effective overall.
Absolutely.
So what are some practical tips for boosting productivity?
Okay, well, one of the most important things is to actually take breaks.
Really?
Yeah, it sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
But short, intentional breaks throughout the day can actually increase your productivity.
Interesting.
It's like hitting the refresh button on your brain.
I've heard that taking breaks can actually improve your focus and creativity.
It does.
It's about working smarter, not harder.
Yes, exactly.
What other tips does Burchard offer?
He also talks about identifying your prolific quality output.
Okay.
Or what he calls your PQO.
PQO, okay.
This is about figuring out what truly moves the needle in your work, the tasks that have the biggest impact,
okay,
and then focusing your energy there.
So it's about being strategic with your time and effort.
Yes.
Not just being busy for the sake of being busy.
Exactly.
I remember a time when I was so overwhelmed with tasks.
Yeah.
I felt like I was drowning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I took a step back.
Yeah.
Identified my PQO.
Yes.
And started delegating or eliminating tasks that weren't truly essential.
Smart.
And it was a game changer.
It is. It is.
So we've talked about clarity, energy, necessity, and productivity.
Right.
Let's move on to influence.
Okay.
This one's really interesting because I think a lot of people assume it's about being charismatic.
Yeah.
Or having a big personality.
Yeah, that's a common misconception.
But Burchard argues that influence is less about personality and more about strategy.
Yeah, he does.
It's about understanding how to shape how others think, challenge them to grow.
Yes.
And become a role model.
I love that.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not about being like a smooth talker or manipulating people.
You know?
It's about inspiring them.
Yes.
And helping them reach their potential.
Exactly.
And one of the most powerful ways to influence others is by simply asking questions that guide their thinking.
That's true.
Questions like, what do you think about this? Or how would you approach this problem?
Yeah, such good ones.
Can spark new ideas and perspectives.
They can.
I love that.
It is.
It's about empowering others to think for themselves and come up with their own solutions.
Yeah, I love that approach.
But I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
We're so used to giving advice or telling people what to do that we forget the power of simply asking the right questions.
It's true.
It's a subtle shift, but it can have a huge impact on your relationships and your ability to influence others.
It really can.
Okay, we've covered 5 out of the 6 habits.
We're on a roll.
Let's tackle the final habit.
Okay.
Courage.
Yes.
I think this is a topic that resonates deeply with everyone, especially in today's world where we're constantly facing challenges and uncertainty.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up.
Yeah.
Burchard actually says that courage is one of the strongest predictors of success.
Wow.
Across all of the other habits.
Interesting.
So courageous people are more likely to be clear, energetic, and productive.
It seems so.
That makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
It takes courage to set ambitious goals, to push yourself beyond your comfort zone.
It does.
And to persevere in the face of obstacles.
Yeah, for sure.
And courage isn't just about facing those big, scary challenges.
Right.
It's about those everyday acts of bravery.
Yes.
Like speaking your truth, standing up for what you believe in.
Yeah.
Or simply taking action, even when you're afraid.
Absolutely.
He has this great quote.
Oh, I love his quotes.
Courage is contagious, just like panic or cowardice.
That's a good one.
What we model for others really matters.
It does.
And he points out that courage can be trained.
Interesting.
Just like any other skill.
Okay.
The more we act courageously, the easier it becomes.
I love that.
Like building a muscle.
Yeah.
The more we exercise our courage muscle, the stronger it gets.
I like that analogy.
So what are some practical steps we can take to cultivate courage in our own lives?
So one of the most powerful things you can do is simply acknowledge your fears.
Oh.
Don't try to pretend that they're not there. Face them head on and ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen?
I think a lot of people get stuck in that what-if cycle.
Yeah.
Letting fear just paralyze them.
Absolutely.
But you're saying it's about confronting those fears and realizing that they're often not as scary as we make them out to be.
Exactly.
And he encourages us to shift our perspective on challenges.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of seeing them as obstacles to avoid,
Right.
try to view them as opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I like that.
That's a powerful mindset shift.
It is.
Instead of fearing failure, we can see it as a valuable learning experience.
Love it.
And remember, you don't have to be fearless to be courageous.
Right.
Courage is about taking action even when you're afraid.
Yes. Well said.
You know, this reminds me of a time when I was terrified to give a presentation. in front of a large audience. I was so nervous that I almost backed out.
Wow.
But then I remembered Burchard's advice.
Yeah.
To honor the struggle and to act courageously even when I'm afraid.
What happened?
I took a deep breath, stepped onto that stage, and gave the presentation.
Good for you.
And guess what?
What?
It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be.
You see.
In fact, it ended up being a really positive experience.
That's great.
It's like that saying, everything you want is on the other side of fear.
So true.
Speaking of facing fears and pushing beyond our comfort zones, let's circle back to the concept of progressive mastery that we touched on earlier.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm dying to know what the 10 steps of progressive mastery are.
Okay, so Burchard provides this really structured approach to skill development.
Okay.
Emphasizing the importance of deliberate practice, feedback, and continuous improvement. So the 10 steps are: get instruction from a credible source. So find a mentor, coach, or teacher who can guide you, model the masters, observe and learn from those who've already achieved what you want to achieve.
Right.
Get immediate feedback on your work. So don't be afraid to ask for constructive criticism. Solve problems while practicing. So don't just go through the motions.
Right.
Actively seek out challenges and find creative solutions.
Okay.
Practice in realistic settings. So simulate the conditions you'll face in the real world. Focus on quantity and quality. So practice regularly and with intention.
Okay.
Outsource tasks to focus on your strengths. So delegate or eliminate tasks that drain your energy and prevent you from focusing on your PQO.
Makes sense.
Confront your weaknesses. Don't shy away from them.
Right.
Address them head on.
Sure.
Create a support system. So surround yourself with people who believe in you and encourage your growth.
Love that.
And then compete wisely.
Okay.
So use competition as a motivator, but don't let it consume you.
Wow. That's quite a list.
It is. It is.
But it highlights the fact that mastery isn't something that happens overnight.
Right.
It's a process.
It is.
That requires dedication, effort, and a willingness to learn and grow.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So we've covered the 6 habits of high performance.
Yeah.
And we've even delved into the steps of progressive mastery.
We have.
But Burchard also talks about common pitfalls.
Yes.
That can sabotage success.
Right.
Even for people who are already high achievers.
It's true.
What are some of those traps that we should be aware of?
So one of the biggest traps is what he calls the lonely at the top syndrome.
Okay.
This is when high performers become so focused on their own success that they isolate themselves from others.
Oh, wow.
They start to feel superior.
Okay.
And dismissive of those who haven't achieved the same level of accomplishment.
So even though they've achieved success,
right,
they end up feeling isolated and disconnected. It's
a real danger.
Yeah.
And it can often lead to arrogance and a lack of empathy, which can damage relationships and hinder future growth.
I've definitely seen that happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes when people achieve a certain level of success, they start to believe that they're better than everyone else. They forget that everyone's on their own journey.
Right.
And that we all have something to learn from each other.
Such an important reminder.
It's a good reminder to stay humble and connected, even as we strive for excellence.
I love that.
What other pitfalls does Burchard mention?
He also cautions against mistaking activity for progress.
Okay.
This is when we get so caught up in being busy that we lose sight of our goals.
Right.
We might be checking things off our to-do list, but we're not actually moving closer to what truly matters. This is something I've definitely struggled with in the past.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used to pride myself on how busy I was.
Yeah.
But then I realized that I wasn't actually making meaningful progress towards my goals.
You were just spinning your wheels.
Exactly.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
Especially in today's world where we're bombarded with distractions.
Absolutely.
But how do we avoid it?
Well, Burchard suggests regularly checking in with yourself and asking, am I truly moving toward my goals, or am I just creating the illusion of progress?
That's a great question to ask ourselves.
It is.
So we've talked about the lonely at the top trap.
Yes.
And the danger of mistaking activity for progress. What other pitfalls does Burchard caution us about?
He also warns against neglecting important areas of our lives.
Okay.
Even in the pursuit of high performance. So it could be neglecting our health, our relationships, our personal growth, even our spiritual well-being.
I think that's a really important point.
Yeah.
High performance shouldn't come at the expense of our well-being.
Right.
or the things that truly matter to us.
He argues that true high performance should enhance our lives,
I love that.
not detract from it.
So it's about finding that balance between striving for excellence and nurturing all aspects of our being.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I love that. It's about being a well-rounded individual.
Yes.
Not just a high achiever. So how do we avoid falling into that trap of neglecting important areas of our lives?
Well, he suggests setting boundaries.
Okay.
And making time for the things that matter most, even when we're busy.
Right.
So it might mean scheduling time for exercise, blocking out time for family and friends, or just making time for ourselves to relax and recharge.
It's about being intentional with our time.
Yes.
And making sure that we're not sacrificing the things that bring us joy and fulfillment.
Absolutely.
And he also stresses the importance of self-care.
Oh, big time.
Self-care is so important.
Yes.
Especially when you're striving for high performance.
Yes.
It's about taking care of your physical, mental, and emotional well-being so that you can show up as your best self.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right.
It could be as simple as getting enough sleep, eating nutritious food, spending time in nature, or engaging in activities that bring you joy.
Those are all great ones.
I think that's a great reminder for all of us.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the hustle and forget to take care of ourselves.
It's true.
Okay, so we've covered the HP6.
Yes.
The common pitfalls to avoid.
Right.
And even the steps of progressive mastery.
Yeah, we've done a lot.
But one thing that really stood out to me in the book was Burchard's discussion of confidence.
Oh, yeah.
He has a really interesting perspective on it.
He does.
He argues that confidence isn't just a feeling. It's something you build.
Yes.
It's based on 3 key pillars.
Okay.
Competence, congruence, and connection.
Love it. Okay, let's break those down. What does he mean by competence?
Well, competence is about developing your skills and abilities.
Okay.
The more competent you are at something, the more confident you'll feel in your ability to do it well.
That makes sense.
And this ties back to the concept of progressive mastery.
Absolutely.
So it's not about being born with natural talent.
Right.
It's about putting in the effort to develop your skills.
Exactly.
And it's not just about technical skills.
Right.
It's also about developing your emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Your social skills, and your ability to navigate challenges and setbacks.
A holistic approach.
So the more we practice and improve our skills, the more confident we'll feel.
Makes sense.
What about congruence?
Okay.
What does that mean in the context of confidence?
So congruence is about living in alignment with your values and your vision for yourself. So when your actions match your beliefs and your goals, you feel this sense of integrity and authenticity, which boosts your confidence.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yes, precisely.
It's about being true to yourself and living in a way that reflects your values.
Love it.
I can see how that would boost your confidence.
Yeah.
When you're living in alignment with your values, you feel good about yourself. And that radiates outward. Okay, so we've talked about competence and congruence.
Yes.
What about the third pillar of confidence?
Okay.
Connection.
So connection is about building strong relationships with people who support and encourage you when you feel loved, valued, and respected. It strengthens your belief in yourself. So it's not about seeking validation from others. It's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and believe in your potential.
Exactly.
It's about having a supportive network of people
Yes.
who believe in you and want to see you succeed.
Absolutely.
I think that's so important.
It is.
We all need people in our lives to encourage us and remind us of our strengths, especially when we're doubting ourselves.
It's true.
And Burchard emphasizes that these 3 pillars, competence, congruence, and connection, work together to create the solid foundation for confidence.
They do. They do.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground. I know. I can't believe it.
The HP6, common pitfalls, progressive mastery, and even the 3 pillars of confidence. I feel like I have a whole new toolbox for unlocking my full potential.
Me too. It's very inspiring.
But if you had to distill all of this down to one key takeaway, what would it be?
I think the biggest takeaway is that high performance is not about luck, talent, or personality.
Interesting.
It's about consistently making choices that support these habits. It's about those daily actions we take, the mindset we cultivate, and the connections we foster.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And I think Burchard makes it clear that anyone can achieve high performance, regardless of their background or their circumstances.
He does.
It's about that willingness to learn, to grow, and to consistently strive for excellence.
I agree.
He does.
And I think this quote from the book sums it up perfectly.
Okay.
As soon as you trust yourself, you will know how to live.
Wow. That's powerful.
It is.
It really is a powerful quote, and it's so true, right?
It is.
And it brings us back to something you said earlier about everything being trainable.
Oh, yeah.
Even confidence.
Yeah.
Which can, sometimes feel so elusive.
It can.
But it can be strengthened with deliberate effort.
Absolutely. And, you don't have to overhaul your whole life to start building confidence.
Right.
Small, consistent actions can make a really big difference over time.
I love that.
Yeah.
So if someone is feeling, a lack of confidence in a particular area, where would you suggest they start?
Well, I would encourage them to think about which of those 3 pillars, competence, congruence, or connection, feels the weakest for them in that moment.
Right.
Then brainstorm one small action they can take to strengthen that pillar.
So it's about breaking it down
Yeah.
into manageable steps.
Exactly.
I love it. Could you give us some examples?
Yeah, sure. So let's say you're feeling a lack of confidence in your ability to lead a project at work. Yeah. Maybe your competence feels a little shaky. You could sign up for a course or a workshop to enhance your leadership skills.
That's a practical step.
Yeah.
That directly addresses competence.
Exactly.
What about congruence?
Okay.
How could you build confidence through congruence?
Maybe you're feeling a little misaligned with your values in your current job.
Yeah.
A small step towards congruence could be updating your resume.
Okay.
And starting to explore new opportunities that better reflect your passion.
So it's about taking action that brings you closer to your ideal vision of yourself.
Yes.
Even if it's just a small step.
Small step in the right direction.
Right. And for connection.
Okay.
Maybe you're feeling isolated and unsupported in your personal life.
Yeah. A small step could be reaching out to a friend or a family member and just scheduling a time to connect.
I think so many people underestimate the power of human connection.
I agree.
Just having someone to talk to and share your struggles with can make a huge difference in how you feel about yourself.
It really can.
And remember, even small actions can create a ripple effect.
That's true.
As you start to build competence, congruence, and connection in one area of your life, it often spills over into other areas.
That's the beauty of it.
I love that.
Yeah.
This has been such an incredible deep dive.
It really has.
I feel like we've explored so much.
Oh, yeah.
The HP6, the pitfalls to avoid, the steps of progressive mastery, and even the 3 pillars of confidence.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a whole new toolbox
for
unlocking my full potential.
Me too.
And I hope our listeners feel empowered to take action and start implementing these habits into their own life.
I hope so too.
Remember, high performance isn't a destination.
Right.
It's a journey.
It is.
It's about continuously striving to become the best version of yourself day after day.
And remember Burchard's words. As soon as you trust yourself, you'll know how to live. Trust in your ability to learn, grow, and achieve those remarkable things.
That's it for this deep dive. We hope you enjoyed it.
We did.
Until next time, keep striving.
Yes.
Keep learning.
Keep going.
And keep unlocking your full potential.
Absolutely.